Hello there, Evie here. Welcome to the Kolink Sanctuary Micro ATX case, essentially a cube case that can fit anything from a Micro ATX down to a Mini ITX. I'll be going through an air-cooled build, showing you an air-cooled build and how that would go about, and the pros and cons of doing an air-cooled build in this case. Unfortunately, due to an issue with the right fan, I'm going to have to send this back before I can do a water-cooled build in it. It's a bit of a setback for, well, the channel in the start of this series, but unfortunately, I don't want to do something like build a water-cooled system in here knowing the fan is dead and then call up the supplier and say, hey, it's broken, take it back. I think that's just exploiting the whole situation, so that's not what I'm about, and I don't think that's what anybody really should be about. So I'm just gonna live by my actions or words or whatever and send it back before I can do the water cooling. I've had to disable the two front fans for two reasons. First reason is that I'm doing a live recording at this stage. I've got a microphone right next to me, and that'll just pick up the noise of these two front fans. They're not quite as quiet as the Vada fans I have in the other bits of the case. And the second reason is that the front right fan is, as I said, it's not working properly. The LEDs on it decide to ramp itself up and down based on the CPU PWM fan curve, and the left one doesn't do that at all. It just stays on, which is great, which is what you really want out of this case. I think that it looks amazing though when well, I think it looks amazing. I think it looks amazing when you've got both of these lit up. You've probably seen some pictures before if you're looking into this case, and it kind of looks like Wally or some sort of robot. And I think if you get some LED strip in there, I tried to do to make it have like a mouth and stuff, it would have been fun, but I couldn't get that to work. I'm pretty sure if you persevered though, you could. But anyway, it looks really awesome when they are on, but the front right one is not working. So for the reasons of that, it's not on at this stage. You'll see it later on though in the live footage, the pre-recorded footage. So anyway, let's crack on with a build, an air-cooled build. I'll be going through pros and cons, the best bits and the worst bits of the case, and everything in between. So I hope you enjoy the video. Likes and dislikes accordingly, and comments down below if you have any suggestions or any issues with the video I've made that I can learn from in the future. So anyway, I will crack on with the video. Hope you enjoy it, and I'll catch you during and at the end for a bit of a wrap-up. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. So we're going to be finally saying goodbye to the Fantex M2Evolve mATX. I've had some pretty good air-cooled and water-cooled builds in there. You can check them out in the top right-hand corner if you fancy seeing those and you're interested in the case. I would definitely recommend it. There's definitely some pros to spending a little bit more on a case. You get some premium features and just some extra quality in the presentation of the product. Going down to things such as the manual is a whole lot better on premium products such as this. Apologies for these two blurry scenes here. This is me getting the draining port ready for draining the system. They're very blurry. I completely forgot to refocus, but the rest of the video, I assure you, is much better. So anyway, releasing the top fill port to allow the air to flow through and the water to flow out. So you can see that's all working in shape. Repositioning the tubing, the drain tubing, just to make sure I get as much as possible. I'm mentioning these things because if you're looking this much into the Kolink Sanctuary, into a specific case, I can imagine you're probably keen to do something a little bit more complicated in the future, such as water cooling. So I may as well make these points. It's only about 1:30 total of this footage, so not much longer to wait. You can see I had a little bit of a drip there. This is the kind of advice I'd like to give. If you're doing water cooling for the first time, I would definitely recommend having the power supply unit fan side down. As in the fan will be facing down, getting air from the bottom of the case, the underside, and flowing up and then exhausting out the back, so it's completely oblivious to the air that is inside the actual case. This is good because then it means that the fan side isn't up, and if you had a drip like that when you're draining your system for the first time or the first few times, you're not quite used to how it works, then you won't get drips like that going inside the power supply unit and then sweating balls next time you turn it on, hoping that it dried out in time and there's no leftover residue or gunk fusing or not fusing. Well, technically fusing, I suppose, in a sense. It's connecting two of the circuits together and shorting the entire system. So anyway, radiators are out, the motherboard is out. Pop out that I/O shield just so I can use it for the next case, and we can say goodbye to the Fantex M2Evolve mATX. It was great building in you. Anyway, the Kolink Sanctuary is up next. Enter the Kolink Sanctuary. Let's do a simple unboxing here. There's a few pros and cons I'm going to mention, of course, as I mentioned before. Obviously, using a knife to get into it. You get loads of these boxes that say, don't use a knife to get into these things. I don't know how else you're going to use it. Apart from scissors, a blade of sorts is required, I'd have thought, to unbox one of these things. But anyway, so, tipping this out, it's very simple. There's not really much inside the box. I kind of not recommend this for an absolute beginner. If something such as a power header or a power switch header header or a reset switch header or fan headers, if those are things that you're not entirely sure about, then I'd probably recommend going for something that you know that there is a good manual in that will guide you a little bit, so you don't have to be looking online with another computer, which you might not have. So this doesn't contain a manual. It guides you as to everything that's in there, such as all the front I/O and that sort of things, what it all means, where it all should all go. So anyway, you'll probably get the gist of it from this video actually, so I suppose you could get this case anyway, knowing the advice I'm going to be giving you and showing you all the clips and footage that I've got. But anyway, first view of the Kolink Sanctuary. It's a pretty nice looking case, not overly over the top, or not over the top of any sorts. It's got a nice matte finish to it, from that matte plastic finish. The side panels and that sort of thing are they seem to be some sort of steel construction, which is nice. But anyway, so it's a nice smooth matte finish, which I definitely like. It's got a nice simple start-stop switch, but you still normally see in cars, to be honest, which I quite like. It's not over the top. You can see the power supply connecting shroud thing has actually got dust on it. I'm guessing it's been around the warehouse for quite a while. It's not been hanging around in my room for longer than a week, so I can't imagine it's gathered the dust there. Anyway, taking the panel off first, 2 screws at the back, 2 thumb screws, pretty decent. I would recommend having the screwdriver. There is a screw connection there that you can use to screw them in, which you can use with the screwdriver included, which, funnily enough, we will see now. I forgot that I hadn't mentioned that already. But anyway, first glimpses inside. You can take the hard drive bays out, the hard drive connectors. They're like quick disconnect ones. You can, well, quick disconnect. They're quick access ones. You can just slot in and out. Pouring the stuff out. I thought there was more than just one thing left. I was amazed to find a screwdriver. You can see I'm very perplexed. There was a screwdriver involved. It's a great screwdriver. I used it for the entire build. It's fantastic. The end on it is strong and it has a good grip, and it's not very not overly sized, so you can actually use it inside the case properly. Anyway, you get zip ties and extra stuff like that. Going into what we're using, we're going to be using the Z170 MSI Mortar mATX motherboard again, with a pre-installed i7 6700K processor. We've got 16 gigs of G.Skill Ripjaw's 5 DDR4 and sorry, trip there, 8 gigs of Crucial Ballistics RAM. We've got a smattering of hard drives and an SSD to go with it, so that's 6.25 terabytes of storage. We're using the R9 390X from MSI, and we're going to be using, I had to shoot this, I know it's overly long, it wastes your time, but it looks awesome doing a footage like this. This is the Hyper 212 Evo from Cooler Master. This is the box cooler I'm going to be using, with various Varda fans. I actually only used 2 extra Varda 120mm fans. And to power it all is the Dark Power Pro 750 watt Be Quiet 80 plus platinum power supply. So first things first, installing as much as you can outside of the case. So RAM is an obvious choice. RAM's the easiest thing in the world to install. I suppose it's easier actually than the graphics card. Graphics card's got some plugs. This all you have to do is slot it into place as so. So there we go. Finally, the last one going into position there. Okay, getting off the second panel to get full access to the inside of the case. There's a few things I want to do. I tried to get the top of the panel off to make working around this a lot easier. I can assure you that without potentially damaging other bits of the case, it's not an easy thing to do. Try to unscrew the top sort of whatever shroud, whatever you can call it. Try to pop out the pins at the top, wouldn't release without popping out the pins at the front, which you just saw then. And the pins at the front, the plastic ones, don't look strong enough. I've worked with those sort of things before, and they're weak. They're sort of, you can get away with doing it once, but if you want to do it on a regular occasion, it's not going to work. So really, just the side panels are the only option I can recommend for building in this. But however, it goes pretty smoothly as long as you follow some basic advice that I'll show you with video footage to boot. So installing the motherboard, you can install some extra standoffs. I did. I actually took it out after this, as you'll see in a second. I needed to take it out regardless, and there'll be a good reason for that. So anyway, you can install the screws simply as this into all the positions where the standoffs are in place. I'll hopefully skip by these quite quickly. There's not really much point in watching a lot of them. Just a couple as an example of where they're located and what you need to do. You can lunge down these if you want, but you only need it to be so tight. Installing the Hyper 212 Evo box cooler on top. Turns out you need to take the motherboard out to do this. You can do this if the hole at the bottom of the motherboard tray was larger, you could do this inside the case, but unfortunately it's not. So I'd recommend, if you're installing your cooler, install the bracket for it outside of the case, not inside the case, like I tried. But it's sort of a good thing for me to be able to do this sort of thing and tell you what to do and what to not do, because otherwise nobody learns really. You just know what's right and you can't really tell what's wrong. So put a bit of thermal splodgy paste on there, install the Hyper 212 Vivo. I was like, yeah, install that, put the fans on, brilliant. You'll notice here that I have to unclip the fans because I can't access these screw mount things. This is all sort of things that you learn as you go. I've installed this this box cooler a few times, but again, it's one of those things you don't do it a hell of a lot, so these sort of things are quite easy to miss. But if you're installing a large box cooler or any box cooler and you want to put fans on, try and install it out without the fans attached, and then go with the fans attached afterwards, and you'll be happy enough. So there we go, push-pull configuration of the fans. You only really need one, but two is actually optimal. Obviously, the more airflow you can get around your cooling system, the better. On a point of cooling, the case does somewhat well. The fans that they supply with the case, the front ones look great, and you can actually use them, or use them with a PWM splitter, fan splitter, and it will actually ramp up and down relatively, but they're quite noisy for what they are. So swapping those out with potentially better LED fans would be something I'd recommend. So installing the power supply, a bit of a kerfuffle going on here. I have the 80 Plus Platinum Dark Power Pro 11 750 watt power supply. This is a fully modular power supply, so that has a couple of issues, one of which is that it's a bit longer than your standard power supply. If you have one that's very semi-modular, so you have like quite a few cables that come out, such as the GPU, CPU and that sort of thing, and motherboard cables are all pre-installed. That is generally smaller, which you can see here, which is all you can fit in. This will only just fit in, so I definitely recommend a semi-modular power supply for this case, and not your full fat completely modular power supply. Let me say now that generally the higher quality one you get in terms of 80 plus ratings, the quieter they are. You get reviews for these, don't take my word for it, but the one I have, the one I chose that I was going to install, which I had to swap out, was a whole world quieter than the one the 8 Plus bronze I have here. But anyway, check reviews for that sort of thing. So you just saw there that there is a sort of plastic drive sled which you can use for 2.5-inch drives. You can use one of them which you can use with a 14mm 2.5-inch drive, and the other one you can use with a 7mm one, but not two 14mm ones. That is a very notable difference. Install the SSD into the slightly more flimsy drive bay there, just because I'd rather have a much more secure mounting in the drive bays which I installed the other two into, as they are hard disk drives, not SSDs. SSDs really don't need the most secure mounting you can get. I mean, you've probably seen a million times that you can install it with tape. Anyway, so installing this the graphics card. Full-size graphics card was not simple. I made it look simple because I tried it a couple of times before. It's very tight. You're going to see now how tight the tolerances are. At the top, there's a lot of clearance. It's not that tight from there, but however, the rear of the card or the front of the case is extremely tight against that front fan. It's not touching it. It's about 5mm maximum distance between the two. So that's kind of all you're going to get. But there we go, we can see a little bit of a sort of what it looks like as a finished build. It's not the most tidy case. Cable management is not particularly easy. The front connectors for the front I/O are quite messy. There's not much way of being able to tidy that up better than it is already when it comes with the case, to be fair. But you can get a good idea of what everything looks like inside. The rear fan is not a 3-pin fan, it is just a Molex fan, so it will be running at full speed. That is quite loud, quite obnoxious, so I'd recommend swapping that one out. The two front ones are 3 pins. You can actually plug them into a fan splitter like I said earlier, and you can control their speed somewhat, but again, they're not super high quality. Here's a good view of the pressed over metal for the side panels. It makes the edges really smooth and lot higher quality than just a simple cutout. And I've not seen those sort of nice presses in a lot of cases, so that's quite impressive for what it is. But anyway, putting the final the panel back on, I think it looks great. I think that power supply unit fitted in quite nicely. It was smaller, so that's perfect, and the GPU fitted in extremely tightly. But yeah, so those are the main takeaways I'd have thought out of this build. A bit of B-roll footage to show you exactly what you end up with. I think it's a perfectly competent case. If you're confident enough with perhaps watching stuff on this video and be able to go with it like that, or perhaps maybe watching some other videos for exactly how to build in cases in terms of front I/O and connection to the motherboard, I could have included it, but I thought it was just going to slow down the video a little bit more than I'd like to, so that's that. You can see the left fan lit up, the right fan doesn't unless it's under extreme load, and that's not something that I perhaps want to try and attempt to do while recording, because it'll be all over the shop and it'll be on and off and on and off. Anyway, all the fans, all the lighting was cable mod LED strips. I would 100% recommend them. They look great, fully controllable, as you saw from the different lighting shades. You can cycle through all the different colors they have. They've got plenty to go for, but that's pretty much it. I sincerely hope that was enough to get you all the answers that you need as to whether you should get this case or not. It was pretty simple to build in, as simple as it is for a case with such constraints, but yeah, I would 100% recommend it. You can see the right fan there is barely lighting up. Anyway, thank you so much for watching the video. Like and dislike appropriately, and comment if you have any comments that you'd like to add. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.